Hello again, it's Noob, and here in front of us we have a Kryptonite Kryptolok chain padlock. I believe that this is a model which lockpicking lawyer quite likes, and I can sort of see why. It has a disc-detainer core, as you'd expect from Kryptonite, and some really nice hardened steel chain underneath this protective sleeve. It unlocks very easily. Just pop your key in, give it a turn, and it releases the chain, which is all integrated, as you can see. So it just locks and unlocks using this mechanism here, which I think is kind of cool. It's like a little hardened steel tube with a cutout in it, and as you turn it, you can see that this piece comes in to lock the chain in. So you slot it in, turn it, and it locks in. Yeah, just a simple yet effective little sort of mechanism here. Just goes around and locks up your lock. Why have this over something like a D-lock? It's a good question. Well, one, the chain is very flexible, albeit a bit heavy, which means that you're much more able to sort of tie it around things. You can get different length chain versions of this as well. I think these go for around £50 each, which is around $60 US. You get longer chains if you want, which is very cool. The chains, of course, because they're flexible, it's harder to use a disc cutting or even a bolt cropping attack on this because of the flexibility of the chain. I think the only weak point about this would be, well, if they did manage to get a purchase, it'd probably be at this end, because that chain link there is actually really solid. So you need to cut through both sides of it, but I think that that is the sort of weak point of this lock if you were cutting. So if you could put that in a place where it'd be hard to access with a cutting disc, then that would probably make this a little bit more secure, but you have to be careful of your lock positioning. At least that's what I think anyway. So how are we going to pick this? Well, I'm going to be using a Sparrow's disc detainer, which I've already set up to pick this lock in terms of its depth to disc 1. Looking at the key, it's a little 6-disc lock with reasonable bittings. So you've got 0 and then some very low, then a medium, then another 0 disc, and then another low cut here. We will have the tension of the disc which is associated with this cut here, so I'll pick all of these discs if I can, and then what we'll do is we'll hold disc, well, any of the 0 discs that I find, with the pick tip like this, then turn back the tensioning tip, which is going to be on disc 1, remember, until it sets, and then the whole thing should open up. Right, let's go do that. Right, let's try to pick this. I think I've got this whole thing set up in terms of the right sort of depth for the pick to work. So it's going to try and get it so it's relatively easy to move the disc tip through the lock, and just try and find that first disc, which I think is, let's count this up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 discs, I think. So this is disc 6. Moderate tension, and it sort of goes, yeah, loose there. It doesn't turn very far as it happens. So let's go to the next disc. Oh, that feels solid. Tiny little click. Next disc. Another little click. Next disc. Should be 3 now. And that they just turn to that position and sort of stop, and I think that's it. So let's go back through, make sure we're as good as we can be. And we're not open yet because I think disc 1 isn't a 0 disc, so just test, binding, stop, out and then in, out and then in. So they feel really good. Then up here, that's binding and then set, binding and then set. I'm feeling pretty good about this. So what I'm going to do is going to hold on to the pick tip on a 0 disc and then turn backwards, and then there we go, we have the open. So that really didn't take too long. It's only a little 6 disc detainer lock. 6 disc lock, that's the one. So, you know, not particularly high security, but a fun pick nevertheless. I think that I've got another, the Kryptonite Evolution here, and if I compare that key, I think it's actually an extra cut. So this is a 7, it's only a 6 disc. So the Kryptonite Evolution is, well, that model at least has more discs, which makes it slightly more pick resistant. And nevertheless, I do quite like this lock, purely because nobody's going to be picking your bike lock. They're going to be using a cutting or bolt cropping attack, and this is actually relatively resistant. It's hard with all its sort of flexible chain links to get a good position to get a cutting disc onto this, although I think it's probably the weakest part just around here. So it's probably slightly more secure against cutting than a middle of the road D-lock. And I do like the flexibility of this, makes it a bit easier to put around your bike. So yeah, not a terrible lock, just the pick resistance on this is pretty poor. Anyway, if you like this video, please leave a like. If you have any comments about this lock, do you have one yourself? What do you think to it? Leave one below. I do read them all and reply to as many as I can. If you haven't subscribed to my channel and want to see more content like this, then please do subscribe. It really helps me out, and I'll see you all next time.